Hello everyone, welcome back to Believer Science Academy, Bangalore. This is topic of the day. In today's topic, we'll discuss about fiscal issues that are being plagued by governments of states. Yesterday we discussed about fiscal issues that are plaguing the municipal governments, and we discussed what are the issues, how we can overcome, what are the best practices. In the same way, we will discuss the fiscal pressure on the state governments. So let us start the topic. The topic is restoring fiscal space for states. What is the topic? Restoring fiscal space for the states. It was written by K. Shanmugam. We'll discuss what is the context. The context is with the end of GST compensation and rising expenditure commitments, states face growing fiscal stress. The GST regime and the rise of cesses and surcharges have centralized India's fiscal architecture, eroding the state's fiscal autonomy. What is this? When the GST was introduced, it was a revolutionary introduction from the government of India. But what it did was it reduced the fiscal power or financial power or tax collection power of the states, because many of the state level tax were subsumed under center. So as a result, the state's fiscal capacity reduced. And to compensate for this reduction in fiscal power from the states, center introduced GST compensation for 5 years since the introduction of GST. Now GST compensation has reached the 5-year mark and it is being removed. So now if GST compensation is removed, the pressure on the state is going to increase, because they are not only losing the taxation powers, they are also not getting GST compensation anymore. So what should be the way forward then? So let us discuss. What is the key issues? First is the erosion of fiscal autonomy. That is, GST shifted taxation powers from the state to GST council, where the center holds greater weight. And states lost control over key revenue sources and must now heavily depend on central transfers. That is, under central devolution of funds. Okay, devolution of funds, because even the compensation is gone and taxation power is also gone. Next, cesses and surcharges. These are non-shareable with the states, shrinking their actual shares of divisible tax pool. What is this? Cess is tax on tax, surcharge tax on tax. Cess is for a particular reason or a particular purpose, and surcharge is for various reasons. Okay, so these surcharge and cesses which is collected by the center are not part of divisible pool of funds. Okay, in the divisible pool of funds, they are kept separately, which means they cannot be sent to states. They are not necessary to be transferred to the states. So most of the funds that are being collected in surcharges remains with the center. Okay, in 2025-26, cesses and surcharges are expected to reach 4.23 lakh crore rupees, giving center extra fiscal leverage, with the states losing their fiscal leverage. Next, failing devolution. That is, despite the finance commission's recommendations, that is 42% devolution was reduced to 41%, the actual transfer is way lower. Okay, pre-GST, center collected 67% and states collected 33%. Post-GST, the ratio unchanged despite higher state expenditure needs. Okay, so when the needs of the states are increasing, there is lesser availability of expenditure. Next, expenditure revenue mismatch. That is, states handle high cost sectors such as health, education, agriculture, law and order. All these sectors, these are money spending sectors. Okay, money spending sectors and not money generating sectors. Okay, or revenue spending sectors. Okay, expenditure sectors. So their revenue base is inadequate, increasing the dependence on central schemes and grants. Why the revenue base is inadequate? Because they are considered as public good in the central level, in the government level. As a result, as part of the welfare schemes, these health, education, agriculture, law and etc. are expenditure done by the state to the consumers. As a result, there is less amount or revenue received from these sectors than what is being spent on. Okay, next, that is the expenditure and revenue mismatch happening in state governments. So comparative perspective is, best practice in Canada, subnational governments, that is the state governments, collect 54% of the taxes and spend 60%, ensuring fiscal flexibility, a model India states seek. Okay, so what is the require? The Canadian and Indian federalism is almost similar, that is centralizing tendency with federating states, whereas in the USA the federalism is completely different because both the states and center have equal powers in most of the cases, but in India and Canada center has the more power compared to center has more power compared to states. Even in Canada, in the fiscal responsibility, in the fiscal fora or in the fiscal space, they have been given enough powers to collect taxes. That is 54% of the taxes and 60% spending, which ensures fiscal flexibility. So that is what Indian states also need and seek and require, because the expenditure is ever increasing. So what should be the way, like before way forward, we will understand the constitutional and institutional points. Article 268 to 293 define center-state relations in the financial sector. Okay, in the Article 268, it talks about which are the taxes that has to be collected by the state government, which are the revenues that has to go to the central government. Under Article 270, it talks about divisible pool of funds, which of the collected funds are part of central's divisible pool of funds and which are not part of central divisible pool of funds. Okay, and there are various aspects, and 271 talks about GST and 280 talks about finance commission. So various, okay, article 280 which talks about finance commission, which is the institution which determines the transfer, the central divisible pool of funds, how much of it has to be spent between the center and the state, how much has to be devolved to the states, and how much has to be devolved between different states. And there is a formula which is also provided, that is weightage is according to the income distance, weightage is according to agriculture income, weightage is according to land, demographic performance, population, etc., etc., is also considered. That is devolved, or the formula is formulated by finance commissions. Next, Article 275 and 282 provides for statutory and discretionary grants. In 275, it provides for statutory grants from the center to state, and in 282, it talks about discretionary grants, which is according to the discretion of the center. Then, complaints of inconsistency and opacity in applying tax sharing criteria still persists in India. Okay, so these are the issues and these are the constitutional and institutional points in dealing with financial relation. So, what is the suggested reforms or way forward according to this particular article? First is need for restructuring the tax sharing principle, that is to restore fiscal balance and autonomy. Give more powers to states because they are the ones who are spending on necessary sectors such as health, education, law. Next, share personal income tax base. So personal income is collected by the center. Here the personal income tax base has to be 50 to 50%, 50 to 50 between the center and states to allow states levy a top-up income tax. Okay, and then merge cesses and surcharges into the divisible pool of funds. Now, which are kept out of this divisible pool of funds has to be brought in to these divisible pool of funds, which increases the amount that is present in divisible pool of fund. Only then it can be transferred proportionally to the states so that they can address their expenditure needs. Then revisit CSS division, that is to ensure better fiscal freedom for the states as well. And finally, periodic review of the fiscal federalism through independent bodies and state special commissions. There is FRBM Act already present in India. Fiscal responsibility and budgetary management act is there. Despite that, the fiscal responsibility from some states and from the center as well is not adequate. The fiscal prudence is most of the times not followed. So these things has to be properly monitored. These things has to be properly reviewed periodically. Okay, so with this we can address the issues that are being faced by the state governments, and so that state can focus on the infrastructure, focus on the health, focus on law, and etc., various services. So this is about today's topic of the day. Very short but very crisp, but very important. This particularly makes a mains answer. So I given a complete structure to this particular issue. This is most of the times a repeated question in mains. So note on important points which I told you here. So this ends the discussion for the day. If you have any other alternative suggestions to improve this relation between center and state or improve the fiscal policy of the states, write in the comment box. We are open to suggestions because UPSC respects opinionated persons.